dear viewer, thank you once again for joining me on The Big Issue. I am Obi Chukwemeka Oti. Nigeria continues to grind under darkness many years after independence and post-privatization of some parts of the power sector. The power sector generates, transmits and distributes between 3,000 and 5,000 megawatts of electric power. That is significantly less than what is needed to meet basic household and industrial needs. This deficit is also exacerbated by unannounced load shedding, partial and total system collapse, as well as power failure. The collapse of the national grid, the third within a month and the fifth this year, is a situation that calls for concern. Despite the investments into the sector over the years, administration after administration, yet the sector continues to fall short of expectations. The Minister of Power, Aliyu Abubakar, was quoted saying last Friday's collapse was as a result of vandalism which disrupted transmission, throwing many states across the nation into darkness. Failing national grid, the spiraling effects on Nigeria's developing economy is our focus today on The Big Issue. I'm now being joined by a professional whose career spans engineering management, construction, manufacturing, consultancy, and governance. He is Executive Director, Engineering and Technical Services, Niger Delta Power Holding Company Limited, and a member of the Nigerian Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers. Engineer Ife Oyedele, thank you for joining me on The Big Issue.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me here.
Engineer Oyedele, as a professional with many years of experience across various fields of electrical engineering, I'd like you to start off by sharing with me briefly your perception of the power sector in Nigeria.
Well, thank you very much once again. I remember that recently, as recently as November 8th, I delivered a lecture at the Nigerian Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers as the annual lecturer. Still, they call it the Distinguished Electrical and Electronics Engineer Annual Lecture. And I gave a synopsis of the electrical sector from 1891, when the thought of bringing power supply to Nigeria started in 1891 up to today. And so that is the history of the power sector in Nigeria. And that lecture, I traced the history, the problems we've been having, and how we have not been able to provide solutions to the problems, how problems keep repeating itself over and over and over again. Right from 1896, we discovered that demand for power has always far exceeded the available power. And when, during the Obasanjo regime, they decided to provide solutions to it, they concentrated on building power supply, on increasing the available power to the grid, and neglected the issue of transmission and distribution. So what we have in Nigeria today is the fact that we have available capacity of about 13,000 megawatts, whereas we can transmit about 5,000 megawatts of power. But even at that, you can see the gap between what we can generate and what we can transmit. And this means that there's a gap somewhere. Normally, if we are generating 13,000 to 15,000 megawatts, the transmission capacity should be in the region of about 30,000 megawatts. And the distribution capacity should be in the region of 45,000 megawatts. So that's the dilemma we're in. So that's where we are today. And you referred in your introduction, you talked about the collapse of suspension tower along the Udupani-Kotekpene transmission. That's true. And it is because incidentally, it was that line was built by Niger Delta Power Holding Company Limited and commissioned about 5 years ago, you know. So the truth of the matter is that we cannot live as a country with incessant vandalism of substations, transmission lines, and so on and so forth. That is also very injurious to the development of the power sector in the country. Now that government is making efforts to expand transmission capacity all over the countries, you find wicked people go to this installation and destroy or I don't know what they did to a 330 kV transmission tower. That's really very sad.
Current electricity generated in Nigeria is inadequate to meet the demands of households and businesses. As a result, Nigeria has a low per capita consumption of electricity. In your breakdown of the challenges confronting the power sector, you did mention at a fora the takeover of ECN in 1951 with emphasis on obsolete assets, or using your words, in a run-down operation condition, raising the need for an immediate rehabilitation. Fast forward now to 2022. Can we have a national grid that will serve the needs of Nigeria?
I'll take this question in two dimensions, because I hear a lot of people talk about the national grid. We don't need a national grid. We don't need a national grid. And I disagree with them. Nigeria needs a national grid. That does not preclude states from having their own grids. That does not preclude us from having local grids all over the places. Nigeria is a very big country, 98,000 square miles of vast and arid land. So we need multiple of it. But look, in recent time, you know that America has what we call a national grid, what we refer here as a national grid. And one of the states that is not connected to the national grid is Texas. When there was a problem with the power supply in Texas, the reason why it took so long for them to get power supply was because they were not on the national grid. If they had been on the national grid, they would have been able to supply them power through that alternative source. So I want to disabuse the mind of people that it is wrong for us to say that we don't need a national grid. No, we need a national grid. What we need to do is to modernize the grid, to have a loop system, whereby if we have this kind of problem that we have in Udupani, Kotekpene, we can bypass that sector and still feed the rest of the nation from another source. So it's a long process, but that's what is ideal in a country as big as Nigeria. I believe that we still need a national grid anytime, any day. However, you are talking about where we are today. The truth of the matter is that what is lacking in Nigeria, if you read that paper, is the absence of a master plan. And this is a problem with all of the sectors of Nigeria. When we have a master plan, maybe a 30-year master plan with 5-year rolling plans, and we are disciplined enough to follow this through. Now, what will happen is that every 5 years, we look at the plan and we say, where are we? Where are we supposed to be? What have we left undone? What have we done that we're not supposed to do? and then we review the plan, and then we move on to the next stage. That is the ideal situation. It is, and if you read that paper, you will see that at the beginning, there was a company called Tractor Bell in the 60s that was employed, that was engaged by, is a consultancy firm to draw up the master plan for Nigeria. Indeed, Nigeria had master plans in all of the sectors of Nigeria, in roads, in this. But over the time, when the governments came in, they abandoned these master plans and they went on to do things like, as in fire brigade approach to doing things. And that's what disrupted the plant. I told you that at the beginning, even in 1896, when power was supplied, to, I think it was Jora at that time, I can't remember now, the street lighting, we found out that the demand was growing at a rate that was far that far exceeded the available power. Now, if we had had a master plan and we had followed this master plan, we will have been able to catch up with the demand and maybe surpass it as well. What is happening in most of the other countries today is that they have surpassed the demand, and they have excess that they can always bring on board through a properly planned looping system that makes room for a national grid and also mini grids or state grids and mini grids all over the country. So that's what is lacking in Nigeria today. And we have no option but to, and that's what this government is doing, to, to tackle all of these problems at the same time. You can see that through the Niger Delta Power Hub Holding Company Limited, government is intervening in building injection substations and distribution networks all over the country. This is not the duty of government to do now, but because of the precarious situation in which we have found ourselves, government is even still spending money to improve the distribution networks, and you can see the many interventions in the transmission sector as well.
It's no news that the deficit in the power sector impacts greatly on the nation's economy, as this has made the cost of doing businesses in Nigeria very high, resulting in prices of goods and services skyrocketing. Yet we talk about the need and our willingness to attract investors into the country. Is this just a case of government paying lip service?
No, government is a continuum. And it's so unfortunate that the Muhammadu Buhari administration is the one that is the recipient of all of this. I have said to people that what we are reaping today is the result of 40, 30 years of neglect. We are only reaping what we have sown or what we have not sown 40, 30 years back. One of the best things that this government has done is that it has laid a foundation, and it has been able to prove that government is a continuum, not in words, but in action. So you have seen that all of the previous projects being executed by previous governments, even 45 years ago, this government has taken conscious efforts to complete them, to restart them, and to complete them. And that is what is going to happen in the power sector. So I don't believe that we are not doing enough, but it will take us some time to get there. This issue of power supply has become compounded in recent times because of increase in the cost of diesel and so on and so forth. And I am sure that if we continue with what we're doing, it will just be a matter of time before we can solve the problems. But I keep repeating, look at the work that we're doing in Ondo South Central District. That work has been completed, but the supply to the place, which is another project that is being executed by the Niger Delta Development Commission has not been completed. But in the interim, I know how many times we've had to go and repair substations, lines that are vandalized by our people. And I say that circumspectly, by our people. I have not seen a people, if your father builds a house for you, you will not say that because water is not in the house yet, or you don't have beds in the house, go there and start removing the doors and the roof and the windows. That is what we are confronted with in Nigeria today. That government builds an infrastructure, and even before that infrastructure is ready for use, Nigerians, because I don't believe that these people who come to do this thing are from Mars. Nigerians go there and vandalize them and destroy what we have. I think it is the duty of every Nigerian. And I don't want to hear that, oh, people don't have ownership of it. How else can people have ownership of a power line that is built for their use?
Let me put you on the spot, Engineer Oyedele. You are from the Southern Senatorial District of Ondo State, which has been in utter darkness for years. With your position at the Niger Delta Power Holding of Nigeria, critics say the narrative should have been different. What do you say?
I've had a lot of talks. In fact, I remember recently, somebody said he cannot supply power to his area. What the federal government of Nigeria has done in the Ondo South, no government has ever done that in any other senatorial district in Nigeria. I stand to be corrected. You know, I challenge anybody. Look, by the time this government came into office, all of the distribution networks in the 6 local governments have been totally vandalized. No single transformer was working. Today we have installed, and we have installed over 100 transformers all over the Central District. We have built injection substations all over the places. Like I said, we have been talking with NEC, with the stakeholders, and we are bringing power directly from Omotosho to the Ondo South Central District. When this process is completed, Ondo South Central District will be a model for the rest of the country. I can assure you that. What we need to do, and don't forget that it is not the duty of either NDPHC or the federal government to do this. But because when the vice president came to campaign in the area, he was informed about our dilemma, he made a promise, and that is why he approved and directed NDPHC to intervene. And that's what we have done. We have built, I mean, you know, today, there's public power supply in Osrc, University of Science and Technology. Nobody can dispute that. You know, this thing don't fly from the air. It is because the network around there have been, and we have reticulated all the other networks all over the country. We are waiting for the 132, 33 kV substation in Erinje to be completed. And once it is completed, the whole area will have uninterrupted power supply directly from Omotosho Power Company that is owned by Niger Delta Power Holding Company Limited. So people who lack information should seek information and stop talking about, there's no political consideration to, look, I'm from the area. I have a home there and I live there. I grew up there. I started my life, my education in Okitiukwa. And I had my primary school in virtually all of the local governments, in Odiaye, in Ilutitung, in Ikoya, in Okitiukwa, in Akotogo. So I understand that terrain very well.
The central bank is building power plants. NNPC is as well building. The proliferation of government agencies in the power sector is a major challenge. What could be responsible for the lack of harmony in that sector?
You know, most of these agencies, everybody, like I said in my lecture, we have about 26 different agencies working in the power sector. Maybe by now it will have been more than that. And we have multiplicity of donor agencies and funding organizations pumping money into the system. And they don't really know what, everybody works in silos. Everybody is working in silos. So that's what is responsible for CBN. They don't know what the other party is doing. That's why CBN is building power stations, NNPC is building power stations. And if you come to Nigeria today, you don't even know where to go to. You don't know what agency to go to. And I suggested that there must be a clearinghouse, to deal with the power sector so that we can harmonize what each party is doing. So if people, look, let me give you an example. There's the Japanese investment that came to and is sited around the Obudukatu Ranch. Whereas we are constructing the transmission line that goes to that area. Our transmission line is still uncompleted. They have completed their distribution projects. So, but if there was synergy, we'll have been able to work together to achieve, the desired objective. So that is the problem that we have. Everybody works in silos. Everybody is doing what somebody else can do, and that's a big problem in the sector. But I believe that government is trying to resolve that now by making sure that there's a clearinghouse. Also, the other problem we have is with the regulating agency, which should superintend and supervise this sector. They must be given the teeth to do what they are supposed to do. They must be manned by competent people whose tenure is not subject to political or any other kind of influence. And I believe that government is working in that direction now.
All right, Engineer Udele, you canvassed the decentralization of the national grid. But do you think states or regions will have the financial muscle to fund such a project?
Look, that's also a big point. When I see the states, the answer is no, as the states are presently are. Maybe one or two, maybe Lagos, one or two other states will be able to do something. So I get worried when there's this clamor for government to release projects to the states. Look, let me give you an example. When we talk about roads, for instance, like the Yoruba people say, Eka Odogba, that is, the strengths of the various states are different. And the priorities of the various state governments are also different. So all of these trunk A roads that link states together, if you leave it in the hands of states, if you divest it and you leave it in the hands of states, and state A, take for instance Lagos, on the Lagos-Ibadan Express Road. The Lagos-Ibadan Express Road, the Lagos state portion ends at Julius Baja. And the Lagos state can fund the rebuilding of his road to Julius Baja. From Julius Baja to somewhere after Ogere is Ogun State. What if Ogun State doesn't have the financial muscle to do that? You travel to Julius Baja and that's the end of it. And now from after Ogere to Ibadan is Oyo State government. Even if Ogun State can do their own, what if Oyo State cannot fund their own, or they don't consider it as their priority? They consider education as their priority. So this is the reason why some of these things are still in the hands of federal government, because we have not gotten to that level. We have not gotten to that level as a nation. And yes, the argument is, let's reduce the revenue that accrues to the federal government and give it to the states. But it still talks about priority. The priority of Ogun State is not the same as the priority of Benue State. So we have to continue to work together as a nation, to ensure that we get the best. And it will just be a matter of time before, yes, and like I said in my opening statement, I agree that states should be given the power, and honestly, I don't think there's anything that stops any state government from doing any project. I mean, states have been participating in rural electrification forever. I remember very well. I mean, since 1982, I've been involved in rural education in Oyo State, and both and in Ondo State, in Osun State, in virtually all of the states of the federation. Local government rural education projects, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. I was involved in all of them. So there's nothing that stops the state governments from participating in the power sector. I remember that in those days, when you have a state executing a project, the NEPA, as it were, then will write to them and say, oh, we are interested in this project, but you're already doing it, and so we hand it over to you. So the truth of the matter is that there's nothing, even in the Constitution today, that stops the state government from executing power projects. But the question is, do they have the fund?
The privatization of the power sector seems not to be yielding results, with the GENCOs as well as DISCOs working below expectation. Isn't this the situation in your view?
No. I don't want to say it is not yielding the results. There were mistakes that were made. For instance, it is my honest opinion that the companies that were chosen to manage the DISCOs don't have the requisite technical and financial capability to do what they're supposed to do. That's very, very key. And if you look at it in recent times, I mean, you have seen the protest against the DISCO that is responsible for Ondo State. You have seen the changes in the ownership of the Abuja Electricity DISCO Company Limited, which is as a result of the inability of the majority shareholders, or those who bought who have the largest shareholding, to meet their financial obligations. Look, if they cannot refund the money that they borrowed, how can they have money to improve and modernize the network under their area of control? You have seen what is happening in Ibadan DISCO as well. So these are, some of the others are still hidden. But the truth of the matter is that I can say generally that the privatization has failed. I can say that without any iota of doubt. That was done by the immediate past government. It was rushed. It was given to the wrong organizations. And I'm sure that government is looking at ways to make them perform. Suggestions are on the board, but I think a holistic review of the sector will be beneficial to the nation. The GENCOs, I mean, the GENCOs are there to do business, and they have the capacity. I mean, if any GENCO does not have the capacity to generate, that is a headache. I mean, there are other GENCOs who are ready to generate, and they are ready to put it on the grid or to sell it to eligible customers, which is one of the things that this government has done to create that eligible customer framework that will enable you to sell your power directly to a willing buyer. That is very, 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 very significant. So the GENCOs, I'm not sure there are too many problems with the GENCOs. I'm sure that, and then government, like I said, government is doing a lot in the transmission, but a lot still needs to be done.
Finally, Engineer Ife Oyedele, Nigeria is moving closer to a new political dispensation. You have advocated for a master plan that will reposition the country's power sector. Let's be futuristic now. What will be your blueprint for a Nigeria's power sector projected into 2030?
No Nigerian must, and I put that must, bypass meters. No Nigerian must be seen to destroy public infrastructure. These Nigerians, our mothers, our fathers, our brothers, our sisters, our friends, we live in, there are neighbors who do all of these things. So we as Nigerians, no matter how bad things are today, we have responsibility to do what is right. If you go to any country, Togo, Dubai, United Arab Emirates, America, you see how clean the streets are. Who do you think keeps the clean street? It is because majority of the citizens of those countries are determined not to throw trash on the road. Look, you still find one or two people who do it. And that is why it is easy for the law enforcement agencies in those countries to be able to apprehend those few people. But I tell you, if out of the 300 something million people in America, 300 million are throwing trash around, the police force in America will not be able to stop it. So what is happening in Nigeria is that majority of us are determined to do what is wrong. And we must stop it. Has no right to complain about this country.
Engineer Ife Oyedele has been sharing his perspectives with me on the challenges confronting the Nigerian power sector. Thank you so much for sharing your views.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been a pleasure being with you. I hope I can come back again and again and again.
Thank you so much. We'll now go on a break to take the news update. When we return, we'll expand the conversation.